Hello family, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Angela, and here on this channel, I create beauty, fashion, and lifestyle content, in particular for the woman over 40. Now today's video is not about lifestyle, but it is about life and some very important and mostly uncomfortable conversations that I personally feel should be had with every person if they're an adult. If you are over 18, you're 21, and you have any possessions whatsoever, if you're just breathing and you're over 18, you're over 21, I think these conversations need to be had. Now, if you don't know, I am a nurse, I am a caregiver, and I've seen what can happen when these conversations don't take place in families or even in single individuals. Now, if you'd like to hear the conversations that I'm referring to, then stay tuned now. Let's get started. Okay, so I have my notes here. And I have my iced tea in a Starbucks mug. If you don't know, I collect Starbucks mugs. I think I have about 65 now from all over the world. This one is from Paris. I'm sure I picked this one up as I was going through Paris in the airport, either coming or going home from Saudi Arabia to the US, or somebody might have bought it for me, but I think I got that one for myself. I just needed something to drink to wet my mouth because I'm gonna be doing a lot of talking. This not gonna be a quick video, but it's gonna be very important. So these conversations are uncomfortable for the most part. And even for myself, someone who's worked in healthcare and who's very comfortable having uncomfortable conversations, sometimes they can be uncomfortable for myself as well, especially when it comes to the older generation. They don't like to talk about stuff like that, but I think it's very important that we have these conversations. And not just for you, but this is for me. This is a reminder for myself. As I was doing my research and looking at this, I was like, oh, okay, I need to take care of some stuff on this list as well. So the very first conversation that I feel like everyone needs to have is, where are your important documents? And even I was talking to my husband about this because we've only been married 5 years now, honey. I know you watched this video. I think it's 5 years. We're going on 6 years, 5.5 years of marriage, and we've only spent two years together here in the United States. We're in Saudi Arabia for the other 3 years of our marriage. But where are the important documents? Now, prior to my marriage, I had a home. So if something happens to me, I have most of my documents in one place, but I don't have them all. And so even for me, when I saw this, I was like, oh, I need to get myself together. And my husband has documents that he needs to get together as well. We have most of our stuff together, but if you don't have all of your important documents where someone can find them, like even if you have, okay, I have my daughter or my son or my husband, or if you're single, my friend is gonna take care of everything if something happens to me, you need to have all those documents in one folder. Have them labeled, this is the life insurance policy, this is the deed to the car, the deed to the house, all of the things that are necessary to take care of your final wishes and to make sure all of your accounts and things are closed. You know, when people pass away, whether it's after they lived a long, fantastic life, or whether it's an accident or illness, whatever the reason is, people are upset, there's a lot of anxiety, feelings are all over the place, and they don't need the extra stress of trying to find documents to make sure things are taken care of. So make certain that all of your important documents are in one place. Ooh, the next conversation needs to be had, especially with larger families or people who have multiple children. It's who gets what in case of the inevitable. Now, Lord have mercy. If you have a large family, like my mother was one of 16, and I think my father was one of 8. And I come from a very, very large family. Even my family, me and my siblings, there are 4 of us. And I feel like everyone needs to not just tell the children or tell whoever's gonna be left behind, but it needs to be put in writing that so-and-so gets this, so-and-so gets that, so-and-so gets this. I have seen so many times when parents own property or they own a home and they leave everything to their children. They fight over it. Most of the time they're gonna be fighting over it. Somebody's gonna feel like they're getting shorted, they're not gonna be treated fairly, or this person is getting more than I'm getting. I think it all needs to be put on paper. That way, if there's some anger or somebody has issue with someone, they can take it up with the person that's passed away. You know, it's not my fault if dad left me the car and left you the house, or vice versa. that's what he wanted. And those wishes can easily be followed if they're all on paper. Not just on paper, but I think also that a conversation needs to be had. I'll just take me, for example. I only birthed one child, even though I have 3. So my daughter is an adult. And so all this right here, all this, my daughter would get all of this. If I had birthed a couple of children and raised a couple of children, I'm sure they would want to divide my belongings. And for my husband, there are things that are very sentimental that I know if something happened to him, he would want his children to have. For example, he has dog tags when he was in the military. And of course, if you know dog tags, you get 2. So if anything happened to him, I would take the dog tags apart. I'll give one to his daughter and one to his son. And just sentimental stuff like that, or even more important stuff like especially money. Especially money. People fight over money. People start fighting over money and belongings and valuable items when patients are in the hospital sick and when they're dying, like in ICU, or even if they feel like they're gonna die or they feel like they're really, really sick. I have seen with my own eyes children fighting over mom's diamond ring or mom's earrings. Where's mother's earrings at, or where mother's ring at, where her fur coat, and where's this and where's that. Mother was still breathing. Mother made it out of ICU and went home. Kids were in the hospital fighting, arguing over stuff that was so unnecessary. And I'm sure for the one person that I'm thinking of right now, she had everything written down. But just know that if you have multiple children, you really, really need to write down who's going to get what. And even if you're single, you need to have that documented, that I want all of my belongings to go to so-and-so, or if you want to divide your belongings, make sure you put it on paper where you want your belongings to go. The next conversation that needs to be had, everyone needs to have a conversation about what their final wishes are. For me and myself, I'm gonna speak for me, I don't want to be buried. I want to have, you can have the funeral, you can have me in the casket so everybody can say goodbye, but I don't want to be buried. I think it is a waste of money. This is my personal belief for me. I think it is a waste of money to spend thousands of dollars for someone to dig that hole. Now that little plot can't be used for hundreds of years probably. Somebody to dig a hole, to put the casket in, put me in it, and that's gonna cost 10, 15, I don't know how much, because I know it costs thousands of dollars. Now my daughter may come see me, my grandson may come see me, my husband may come see me, but in 2 generations, I'm just gonna be bones in the casket in the ground. Nobody's gonna remember me. Nobody's gonna think about me. No one's gonna come and visit me. Why? What is the point? That money can be used for my grandchildren or for my husband. I just don't, for me. And so when I said that, and I said it said it in passing, and my daughter was like, no. So I didn't even think that she would have a problem with that, but she was like, no, mommy, I don't want you to be burnt. Child, I ain't gonna be in that body. So that's a conversation that needs to be had. So I've had that conversation with her, and I've had that conversation with my husband. Because I don't know what you want to do with my ashes. Maybe y'all can split them. If I die before you, you can split. You give her half, you can take the other half. It doesn't matter to me. But I do not want to be buried. I want to be cremated. And I think people need to know that they need to write that down. If you want to be buried, if you're living out of the country, do you want to be brought back home? Back home to where? Like back home to your city? Like I'm in Texas, but I'm really from North Carolina. I'm from North Carolina. If I were going to have a funeral, I would want to have my funeral in North Carolina. That's an extra expense to have the body taken back across state lines to North Carolina from Texas, whether you have it flown or whether I'm sure nobody's gonna drive me back to North Carolina for hours and hours in the back of the car. That ain't gonna happen. But just the thought of having the extra expense of flying a body back to North Carolina. So make sure the person that's gonna be responsible for handling your last wishes know what your last wishes are. The next conversation that needs to be had is about a healthcare or a durable power of attorney. Now, you may not know this, but if you ever get sick and you go to the hospital, you can get a healthcare power of attorney papers written up for free. You can ask for it if you want healthcare power of attorney. And healthcare power of attorney, that person has the right to make all of your medical decisions if you're unable to make your medical decisions for yourself. So I'll talk about me again, for instance. So I only had one daughter, and when I left to go live in Saudi Arabia, she was single, she was not married. And she had one child, but he was underage. So we made her godmother, Carmen, her other mama, we made Carmen her healthcare power of attorney. We had those papers drawn up so that if anything happened to her, because she had some heart issues, which she had heart issues after she had the second baby, but she had some health issues, and I wanted to make certain if something happened to her, I wanted someone that I love, someone that loves her, someone that I know who is competent to make medical decisions. So we decided it would be Carmen. Carmen was a healthcare power of attorney for the entire 5.5 years I was in Saudi Arabia. Now, if you're married, your spouse is going to be your healthcare power of attorney. But if you're not married, and if you have children, you need to decide who's going to make the medical decision if you have multiple children, because you don't want your children in the hospital arguing about, I don't think mom should do this, or I think mom should do this, and an argument ensues, and it's not a good scene. It's not good for the family. It can cause lifelong trauma between your children or whomever is going to be making those decisions. So you need to make certain someone needs to be your healthcare power of attorney, or that everyone knows who that person is, and get those papers drawn up. And on the other hand, also, especially if you're single, or even if you have children and you're single, then you need to make certain someone has your doable power of attorney, someone who can sign all your papers for you legally if you're unable to do it for yourself, all of your finances, that's your investments, that's your retirement, that's sign papers about your home, your car, whatever, if something happens to you. So make certain that you know who that person is, make sure that person is aware who they are, and if there are multiple people that are in the situation, make sure everyone knows that Lisa is my healthcare power of attorney and that Michael is my durable power of attorney. So make sure those are known and make sure those conversations are had. Okay, the last one is make sure whomever is going to be taking care of you if something happens to you knows what your final wishes are when it comes to a DNR and what you do and do not want done. So I'll use me again for the last time. Because I'm a nurse, I have seen a lot. I've seen a lot when it comes to the hospital. When I was in nursing school, so I started nursing school when I was 22. So I was in nursing school from the time I was 22 to I was 26, my first time undergrad. Then I got my master's degree a little bit later. But in undergrad school, we have to do rotations through different areas in the hospital of nursing. And I did my ICU rotation. And I had a patient, and I don't remember how old he was, but I know he was elderly. He was an old gentleman, and he had multiple heart attacks. He was still a full cold, which means do everything you can to bring him back. And so for me, I want quality of life over quantity of life. I want quality of life. I don't think you guys understand what that means. If a patient is a full cold and they're in ICU or they're in the hospital and they've had multiple heart attacks or multiple strokes, the quality of life is everything, but if it's on you. If that patient says, do everything I want to come back, then so be it. But if they can't make that decision, then the family has to make that decision. Anyway, get back to my story. So this man was, I don't know how old he was. He had to be in his 80s or early 90s and had multiple heart attacks. He wasn't feeble, but he wasn't a strong, healthy man. And his heart stopped beating. And I had to do his chest compressions. And I don't know how I ended up on top of the bed because the person that I was precepting with said, get on top of the bed and do the chest compressions. Straddle the patient, do the chest compressions, because there were people all around. There was no room for me around the bed. The respiratory therapist is always at the head of the bed. They're at the head of the bed. They have the patient's head back. They're putting the scope down the patient's throat with the light on it, trying to make sure the scope gets into the patient's lungs versus the patient's stomach. And so I'm on top of the patients doing the chest compressions. And I know when you see on television, you see somebody doing CPR and that is not what we do. That is not what we are pushing. We're trying to get all that air out and we're trying to get those lungs expanded. We're trying to get that oxygen in. We are pushing down. We are pushing. And as I was pushing this man's chest down, I could hear his ribs cracking. Up. I was traumatized. He didn't make it. ended up didn't making it because he was so feeble. He had so many heart attacks. His body just could not sustain the trauma, and it was the trauma of trying to be resuscitated. And like I'm doing the chest compressions on his chest. Then there's a nurse on his right arm. There's a nurse on the left arm trying to start IVs to get fluid and meds in him. And then the respiratory therapist is down. Like it was traumatizing. And the families don't see that because they're not there. Usually they're in the waiting room or they're at home. And so I've told my husband, this is what I said for me. If something happens or I get to an elderly age where I can't take care of myself, if I can't feed myself, if I can't get up and walk, if I can't go to the bathroom on my own, then I need to be a DNR. I do not want to be resuscitated if something happens to me because I want quality of life over quantity of life. It is very, very important for me. And I also say that because I've worked in nursing homes. So most of the time, if patients are really sick, they say they may have a massive heart attack, and we do everything we want to be full cold, and they might have another heart attack or have a massive stroke, and you make them a full cold, and then families really want to say their goodbyes. They want them to make it. And a lot of patients will end up in nursing homes. I've worked in case management, so I've sent patients from hospitals to nursing homes, and families have every intention of going to visit, but they're still living life. They're still working, and they don't have as much time as they thought they would have to take care of mom or dad, of uncle or whomever that's going to be going to the nursing home. And patients, I've seen patients in nursing homes that have no visitors. I've seen people there where they'll get a visit on Mother's Day and on Christmas, and that's it. That's it. They get 2 visits from family a year, and it's really, really sad. And for me, I don't want to be in that predicament because a lot of patients, and it's not any fault of the staff. An average nursing assistant may have 6 to 8 patients to give baths to feed, and the nurses are passing meds in a nursing home for 15 to 25 or 30 patients, and they just don't have any time to do that one-on-one care. And a lot of times those patients end up being in that one room, or in that room to the dining room and back for the rest of their life. And it just, for me, it just would feel like a prison sentence, and I just would not want that for myself. So I have had extensive conversations with my husband, with my daughter. He and I, because my husband is a flight, oh God, what did he call himself? He is I was like, his official title is MS helicopter pilot. So he picks up the sickest of the sickest patients and transports them from one hospital to another, or from the scene of an accident to a hospital, or if there's not even an accident. The only time he had a truck driver feel like he was having a heart attack. He felt like he was having a heart attack. He pulled his truck over, which was the right thing to do, thank goodness. Dialed 911, I think I'm having a heart attack. He was having a massive heart attack. And so my husband flew down with the nurse and the medic in the back of the helicopter. EMS was there before we got there. EMS was there before he got there, landed in the field. They brought him over to the helicopter and they flew him to a hospital. So he does that. So he's seen the ins and outs of this as well. So we've had extensive conversations about what our last wishes are. And basically they are, if I can't take care of myself, then please make me a DNR. No antibiotics, no nothing, make sure. And DNR doesn't mean that I'm gonna die a painful death if I'm, I happen to be in the hospital. It just means let me die with dignity and in comfort. So that is, for me, that was one of the most important conversations that I felt like I should be having with my husband. And so we've had that conversation, and I recommend that you have that conversation with your family members, with your spouse, with your children, and ask your children, or if you have older children, and your parents. Ask your parents, what are your wishes? What do you want to happen? If you stop breathing, or if your heart stops beating, what do you want me to do? That's the way I put it to my mother in the most simplest form. If you stop breathing, or if your heart stops beating, what do you want me to do? That's the conversation that should be had. Well, that's it, family. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if I missed any conversations that need to be had. Are there conversations that you or your family members are having that I did not talk about that I can share with the audience at a later date? I think that is very important. The more we know, the better it'd be for all of us. Now, no matter where you are in the world, I want you to know that you are important. I want you to know that you are loved. I want you to know that I greatly appreciate you, and I want you to have the most blessed day. Bye-bye.